started like a normal Friday, the kind that feels routine in a suburban house where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. My husband Derek was out of town for work, Chicago I think, and the house felt quieter than usual. Too quiet. It was just me and his son Julian. Julian had just turned 19 a few months before. College freshman, home for the weekend, still figuring himself out. He was not a kid anymore, but there were moments where he still moved through the house like he did not quite know where he belonged. I had been in his life for 5 years by then. Not his mom, never trying to be, but more than just Dad's wife. Somewhere in that blurry middle, we got along. That is what made everything worse. That night, I was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, rinsing dishes, when he came in and leaned against the counter like he always did. Hoodie, messy hair, that restless energy he had when something was on his mind. "Hey," he said, casual but not really. I glanced at him. "Hey, you good?" He hesitated, then laughed a little. "Yeah, I mean maybe not. That should have been my cue to keep things light. Keep things distant." But I did not. "What is up?" He scratched the back of his neck, looking down at the floor like he was debating whether to say it. "I have got a girl coming over tonight." I smiled automatically. "Okay, that is normal." "Yeah, but it is not just like hanging out." There was something in his voice that made me pause. Not excitement, nerves, real nerves. "Oh," I said softer now. "First time?" He nodded barely. I do not know why my chest tightened the way it did. It was not my place to feel anything about that. He was an adult. It was his life. But standing there in that quiet kitchen, it suddenly felt like the house was holding its breath. "You okay with that?" I asked. He let out a breath. "Honestly, I have no idea what I am doing." I laughed, trying to keep it normal. "No one does the first time. That is kind of the whole thing." "Yeah, but..." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. What if I mess it up? There was something raw in that question. Not just about sex, about confidence, about being enough. And for a second, I forgot all the lines that should have been there. "You're not going to mess it up," I said. "Just do not overthink it. Be honest. Pay attention to her. That matters more than anything." He nodded slowly, like he was absorbing every word. "Thanks," he said. I just did not know who else to ask. That should have been the end of it. Just a conversation, harmless, but something shifted in the air after that. I felt it, even if I did not want to admit it. Around 9:00 p.m., she showed up. I heard the front door open, voices, a girl laughing nervously. I did not go downstairs. I told myself it was better to give them space, not make it weird. But I still listened. Her name was Chloe. I caught that much when Julian introduced her. She sounded sweet, a little shy, the kind of girl who probably had her own nerves about the whole thing. I sat on the edge of my bed upstairs, a glass of wine in my hand, telling myself I was just relaxing. But my ears were tuned to every sound coming from below. At first it was normal. TV on, low conversation, the kind of awkward small talk that comes before something bigger. Then the TV went off. The silence that followed felt loud. I took a sip of wine, my heart beating faster for no reason I wanted to admit. I told myself to turn on music, distract myself, anything. But I did not. Instead, I waited. Minutes passed. Then I heard footsteps moving toward Julian's room, a door closing, and then nothing. That is when my mind started going places it should not. Imagining what was happening down there. Him trying to act confident, her maybe just as unsure. Two people figuring it out in real time. I stood up, pacing my room. This was ridiculous. Why did I even care this much? I told myself it was just concern. That is what I clung to. He was inexperienced, nervous. What if something went wrong? That is how I justified it when I stepped into the hallway. I did not go all the way downstairs at first. I just stood at the top of the stairs listening. There were sounds now, muffled voices, a nervous laugh, then a pause. "Wait," I heard Chloe say, faint but clear enough. Another pause. "I do not know if I can do this," she added. My stomach dropped. There was a long silence after that, the kind that feels heavy like something fragile just cracked. Then Julian's voice, low and strained. "It is okay. We do not have to," but it did not sound okay. It sounded like he was trying not to let it hit him. I should not have moved. I know that. I should have gone back to my room, let them figure it out. But I did not. I walked down the stairs slowly, my heart pounding in a way that felt wrong, like I was crossing a line I could not uncross. By the time I reached the bottom, I could hear them more clearly. I am sorry, Chloe was saying. I thought I was ready, but I am not. It is fine, Julian said again, but there was something hollow in it. Another silence. Then the sound of movement, close, the awkward kind of rustling that comes when a moment collapses. I stood there in the hallway, frozen, listening to the aftermath of something that never fully happened. A few minutes later, the door opened. Chloe came out first, avoiding eye contact with me completely. Her face was flushed, embarrassed. She mumbled a quick goodnight as she hurried past, grabbing her bag and heading for the door. I just nodded, too stunned to say anything. The front door closed behind her, and the house went quiet again. Julian did not come out right away. I do not know how long I stood there. Maybe a minute, maybe longer. Long enough for that heavy, uncomfortable silence to settle in. Then his door opened. He stepped out, running a hand through his hair, not even noticing me at first. His face, I will never forget that look. It was not anger. It was not even sadness exactly. It was something worse. Embarrassment. Disappointment. That sinking feeling of not being enough. "Hey," I said softly. He froze when he saw me, like he had not expected anyone to be there. "Oh, hey." There was a long pause between us. "You okay?" I asked, even though the answer was obvious. He let out a short laugh, shaking his head. Yeah, I am good." But his eyes said everything he was not saying. And for some reason, I could not just leave it there. "You do not have to pretend," I said gently. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his expression cracked. I thought it was finally going to happen, you know," he said quietly. "And then it did not, and I feel like an idiot for even thinking I could pull it off." "You are not an idiot," I said. "It kind of feels like I am." There was something vulnerable in the way he stood there, like all his confidence had just drained out of him. And I stepped closer. I do not know why. I have asked myself that question 100 times since. Maybe I wanted to comfort him. Maybe I wanted to fix that look on his face. Or maybe deep down, something else had already started shifting and I just had not admitted it yet. "Hey," I said softly, reaching out and touching his arm. "It is not about pulling it off. It is not a performance." He let out a breath, looking down at where my hand rested on him. "Then why does it feel like I failed?" I did not have a good answer for that, but I did not pull my hand away either. And that was the moment everything started to go somewhere it never should have. I should have walked away right then. That was the clean exit. Say something reassuring, maybe tell him to get some sleep and go back upstairs like none of it had anything to do with me. That is what a normal person would have done. But I did not move. My hand was still on his arm, and neither of us said anything for a few seconds that felt way longer than they should have. I could feel the tension in him, not just emotional but physical too, like he did not know what to do with himself, where to put all that embarrassment and frustration. "I just hate how it ended," he said finally, his voice quieter now. "Like she looked at me like I did something wrong." "You did not," I said quickly. "She just was not ready. That is not on you." He nodded, but it did not really land. I could tell. His shoulders were still tight, his jaw clenched, just a little. "I do not even know what I was supposed to do differently," he added. "Like, is there something I should have said, or—" He stopped himself, exhaling sharply. "I do not know. I sound pathetic." "You do not sound pathetic," I said again, softer this time. There was something about the way he looked at me after that, like he was actually listening, actually needing to hear it. And it pulled me in more than it should have. "I mean it," I continued. "First times are messy. They are awkward. Nobody talks about that part, but it is real." He let out a small laugh. "Yeah, well, mine did not even make it that far." I hesitated for a second, then said something I did not fully think through. "Honestly, that might have been better." He raised an eyebrow slightly. "Better how?" "Because now there is no pressure," I said. "No expectations you did not meet. You can just take your time, figure things out when it actually feels right." He studied me for a moment like he was trying to decide if I really believed that. "You make it sound easy," he said. "It is not easy," I admitted, "but it does not have to feel like a test you are failing." Another pause settled between us. Not awkward exactly, just charged, like something unspoken was sitting right there in the space between our words. He glanced down again, then back up at me. "Can I ask you something?" he said. I felt a flicker of hesitation, but I nodded anyway. "Yeah." "How do you know what you are doing?" he asked. Like, how did you know your first time? That question should have been a boundary, a clear one. But instead of shutting it down, I answered. I did not, I said. Not really. I just paid attention to how I felt. To the other person. You kind of learn as you go. Yeah, but what if you are just bad at it? He said, half joking, half serious. I smiled a little. You are not just automatically bad at something like that. It is not a skill you are graded on. He shook his head like he did not fully buy it. Still feels like it. I do not know what came over me next. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the way he was looking at me, like I had answers he did not. Or maybe it was something deeper, something I did not want to name. You are overthinking everything, I said. Probably, he admitted. You are in your head instead of in the moment. He let out a breath. Yeah, that sounds about right. I stepped a little closer without even realizing it at first. Close enough that I could see the slight flush still lingering on his face, the way his eyes kept flicking to mine and then away again. You do not need everything figured out beforehand, I said quietly. You just need to relax. He looked at me again. And this time, he did not look away. How? He asked. That single word hung there, heavier than it should have. I felt my heart start to beat faster, a kind of awareness creeping in that I tried to ignore. This was not just a conversation anymore. It had not been for a few minutes now. You just stop putting so much pressure on yourself, I said, but my voice did not sound as steady as before. He took a small step closer. I do not know if I can do that, he said. And now there was barely any space between us. I should have stepped back. I should have laughed it off, redirected, ended it. But I did not. Julian, I started. But I did not finish the sentence because I did not know how to finish it without acknowledging what was happening. His eyes dropped to my lips for a second before he caught himself and looked away like he knew that line too and was trying not to cross it. I am sorry, he said quickly, stepping back a little. I did not mean to make this weird. That snapped something in me. Not in a good way, just enough to make me realize how far things had already drifted. It is not weird, I said almost automatically. But it was. It absolutely was. We both knew it. Another silence stretched out, thicker this time. I should probably just go to bed, he said finally, rubbing the back of his neck again. Try to forget tonight ever happened. There was something about the way he said that, like he wanted to disappear into it, erase it completely, that made my chest tighten again. You do not have to do that, I said. He gave me a small, tired smile. Feels like the easiest option. Or, I said slowly, you could just not let one bad moment define everything. He looked at me, a little more focused now. And do what instead? I hesitated. This was another moment, another chance to stop. But instead, I said, talk it through, figure out what actually went wrong. What you felt, what she felt. He frowned slightly. You really think that helps? Yeah, I said. I do. He studied me again like he was weighing something. Then can I ask you something else? He said. I nodded, even though part of me was already bracing for it. What would you have done? He asked. If you were her. That question hit differently. I felt it in my stomach, in my chest, in the way the air seemed to shift around us again. I do not know, I said at first, because that was the safe answer. But he did not look convinced. No, seriously, he said. Like, if you were in that situation, what would have made it feel right? I swallowed, suddenly very aware of how close we still were. It is not just about what you do, I said slowly. It is about how you make the other person feel safe, comfortable, like there is no pressure. He nodded slightly, listening. And sometimes, I added, my voice quieter now, it is about slowing things down, not rushing into it like it is some kind of goal. He held my gaze this time, really held it. Would that have made a difference tonight? He asked. I did not answer right away, because the truth was I did not know, and the longer I stood there looking at him, the more it felt like the question was not really about Chloe anymore. I think it might have, I said finally, another pause. Then he said something that shifted everything again. Do you think I could try again? My heart skipped, but I forced a neutral tone. With her? He shook his head slightly. I do not think she is coming back. That was not what I meant. But before I could clarify, he added quieter now. I just mean like in general, not tonight. Just sometime, I exhaled slowly. Yeah, Of course you can. He nodded, but he did not look relieved. If anything, he looked more uncertain. I just do not want it to go like that again, he said. It will not, I said, even though I had no way of knowing that. He looked at me again, and there was something in his expression now that had not been there before. Something searching, something that made my pulse pick up in a way I could not ignore anymore. Thanks, he said quietly. And this time, when the silence came back, it did not feel like something that needed to be filled. It felt like something building. I did not sleep that night, not even close. I went back upstairs eventually, but my body felt wired, like I had had 10 cups of coffee instead of 1 glass of wine. I changed into pajamas, got into bed, turned off the light, and just lay there staring at the ceiling. Everything kept replaying. The way he looked at me, the questions, how close we stood, that moment where it almost crossed into something else, and then did not fully stop either. I kept telling myself it was just a weird emotional night, that he was vulnerable. I was trying to help. Things blurred a little. That is all it was. But that was not the whole truth. And I knew it because I did not pull away. Because part of me did not want to. That was the part I could not shake. Around 2 a.m., I heard his door open. Soft footsteps in the hallway. Then the bathroom door closing, water running for a few seconds, then silence again. I turned onto my side facing the wall, like somehow pretending to sleep would make everything feel more normal. Like if he walked past my room, it would just be another quiet night in the house. But my heart was beating too fast for that. I heard the bathroom door open again. His footsteps came back down the hall, slower this time, and then they stopped right outside my door. Everything in me went still. There was a pause, a long one, long enough that I started wondering if I was imagining it. Then a soft knock. Not loud, not urgent, just there. I did not answer right away. I should have stayed quiet, let him assume I was asleep. But I did not. Yeah? I said, my voice lower than usual. The door opened just a little and he leaned in. Sorry, he said quietly. Did I wake you? I sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around me more out of instinct than anything else. No, I was not asleep. He hesitated in the doorway like he was not sure if he should come in. You okay? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. He gave a small shrug. Not really. I nodded toward the inside of the room. You can come in, that was another line. Another moment I could have handled differently, but I did not. He stepped inside, closing the door halfway behind him. Not all the way, just enough that it felt private. He stayed near the door at first, like he did not want to assume anything. I just could not sleep, he said. My head will not shut off. Yeah, I said quietly. I get that. He ran a hand through his hair again, pacing a little this time. I keep thinking about tonight, he admitted. About what I did wrong, or did not do. You did not do anything wrong, I said again, softer now. He stopped pacing and looked at me. It does not feel that way. I shifted slightly, sitting up more fully. Come sit down. He hesitated for a second, then walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. Not too close, but not far either. There was something about having him there in my room at that hour that made everything feel heavier. More real. I just hate how it ended, he said again, his voice quieter now. Like I did not even get a chance to figure anything out. You will, I said. This is not your only chance. He nodded, but his shoulders were still tense. I just wish I knew what it was supposed to feel like, he said. That sentence hung in the air between us. I felt it land somewhere deeper than it should have. What do you mean? I asked, even though I had a feeling I already understood. Like, how do you know you are doing it right? He said, or that it is good, or real. I swallowed, suddenly very aware of how quiet the house was, how close we were sitting, how thin the line had already become. It is not about doing it right, I said carefully. It is about connection, being present with the other person. He looked down at his hands. I did not feel that tonight. That is okay, I said. It does not always happen right away. He let out a breath, shaking his head slightly. I just do not want my first time to be like that. Awkward and unfinished. I did not respond right away, because something about the way he said it, about how much it mattered to him, made my chest tighten again. You are putting a lot of pressure on something that does not have to be perfect, I said finally. I know, he said. I just want it to mean something, you know? I nodded slowly. Yeah, I get that. There was a pause after that. A long one, And then he said it. What was yours like? I exhaled quietly, not expecting the question to feel so loaded. It was complicated, I said. How? He asked. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. It was not perfect. It was not some big magical moment, but it was not bad either. It just was. He looked at me again, more focused now. Did you know what you were doing? He asked. I shook my head slightly. Not really. I just trusted the moment. Yeah, he said softly. I do not think I had that tonight. Another silence. But this one felt different, closer. I just keep thinking, he said, his voice lower now. Maybe I rushed it. Maybe I did not make her feel comfortable enough. You probably did not do anything wrong, I said. Sometimes it just does not line up. He nodded, but he did not look convinced. I just wish I could understand what it is supposed to feel like, he said again. And this time when he looked at me, it was not just curiosity. It was something else, something searching, something that made my pulse spike in a way I could not ignore anymore. Julian, I started, but my voice trailed off because I did not know how to finish that sentence without acknowledging what was happening. He shifted slightly closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the warmth from him. I am not trying to make things weird, he said quickly. I just trust you, I guess. That hit harder than anything else he had said, because trust was supposed to be the boundary, and instead it felt like the thing pulling me closer. You can ask me anything, I said, even though part of me knew I should not have. He held my gaze for a second longer than necessary. Okay, he said quietly. Another pause, then softer, almost hesitant. What would you have done differently tonight? If you were me, I inhaled slowly, trying to keep my thoughts steady. I would have slowed down, I said, focused more on her comfort. Let things build naturally instead of trying to force a moment. He nodded slightly. And if she still said no? Then you respect that, I said, and you do not take it as a failure. He looked at me for a long moment. I wish I could believe that, he said. You will, I said eventually. But even as I said it, I could feel something shifting again. The space between us did not feel like space anymore. It felt like tension, like a question neither of us was saying out loud. His hand moved slightly on the bed, closer to mine. Not touching, just there, and I did not move mine away. That was the moment I knew things had already gone too far. Not because anything had happened yet, but because I was not stopping it. I knew exactly when it crossed the line. Not in some dramatic, obvious way. It was quieter than that. Subtle. The kind of moment you could almost pretend did not mean anything if you were not paying attention. His hand was close to mine on the bed. Not touching, just close enough that I could feel the heat from it. Like a warning I chose to ignore. I should have moved my hand, even just an inch. That would have been enough to reset everything, to remind both of us where the boundary was. But I did not move, and neither did he. The silence stretched out again, but it did not feel awkward anymore. It felt heavy, intentional. Do you think it is supposed to just happen? He asked quietly. I turned my head slightly toward him. What do you mean? Like when it is right, he said. Do you just know, or do you have to figure it out while it is happening? I could hear the uncertainty in his voice, but underneath that, there was something else now. Something steadier, more focused. You kind of feel your way through it, I said. It is not something you can fully plan. He nodded slowly, like he was absorbing that. And what if you do not trust yourself? He asked. I let out a small breath. Then you trust the moment, or the person you are with. That last part landed differently than I intended, because now we both knew what that meant. He looked at me, really looked this time, and did not look away. Yeah, he said softly. That makes sense. My heart was beating harder now. Not in a panicked way. In a way that felt aware. Too aware. Julian, I said, my voice quieter than before. Maybe we should... I am not trying to mess anything up, he said quickly, cutting me off. I just do not want to feel like that again. Like I do not know anything. You do not have to know everything, I said. But I want to understand, he said. At least a little. There it was again. That pull. That way, he looked at me like I had answers, like I was something safe and certain. And that is what made it dangerous. Because I did not feel distant from him in that moment. I felt close. Too close. You will, I said, but my voice did not carry the same firmness it had earlier. Just not like this. He tilted his head slightly. Not like what? I swallowed. Not with me, I said. There, I said it. I put the boundary into words. For a second, everything went still. He nodded once slowly. Right, he said. And just like that, the air shifted again. Not gone, but changed. Like something had been acknowledged, even if it was not fully resolved. I should go, he added, his voice quieter now. Yeah, I said. You probably should, but neither of us moved right away. Another pause, another moment where something could have tipped in either direction. Then he stood up. I felt the shift immediately, like the room exhaled a little. Thanks for talking, he said. Of course, I replied. He hesitated for half a second, like he wanted to say something else, then did not. Good night, he said. Good night. He turned and walked to the door, opening it slowly. The hallway light spilled into the room for a second before he stepped out. Then the door closed, and just like that, I was alone again. But it did not feel like the same room. I sat there for a long time after he left, not moving, not even really thinking clearly, just sitting with it. My heart was still racing. My hand, the one that had been next to his, felt warm, like it was holding on to something that had not actually happened. That is what I kept telling myself. Nothing happened. Nothing actually happened. But that was not the truth. Not really, because something had happened. It just was not physical. It was the way we looked at each other, the way neither of us pulled back soon enough, the way I did not shut it down the moment I should have. That was the part that stuck with me. I lay back in bed eventually, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, it felt different, heavier, like the house itself knew something had shifted. I tried to convince myself it would fade in the morning, that everything would go back to normal once the daylight came in. Once we were just two people in a house again, instead of whatever that moment had been. But deep down, I knew better, because I could still feel it. That tension, that unfinished edge, that question neither of us answered. And the worst part? A part of me did not want it to disappear. That is what scared me the most, not what almost happened, but the fact that I did not completely regret it. The next morning, everything felt normal, too normal. Sunlight through the windows, coffee brewing in the kitchen, the quiet hum of a typical Saturday morning. I stood at the counter, gripping my mug a little tighter than usual, trying to steady myself before he came downstairs. When I heard his footsteps, my chest tightened. Here we go, I thought. This is where it either becomes real or disappears. He walked into the kitchen like he always did, hair messy, wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants, looking like he had barely slept. Morning, he said. Morning, I replied, keeping my voice as even as I could. There was a brief pause. Then he grabbed a mug and poured himself coffee like nothing had happened. Like last night was just a conversation. I watched him carefully, trying to read something, anything, in his expression. But he did not look at me right away. Did you sleep at all? I asked. He let out a small breath. A little. Yeah, I said. Same. Another pause. Then finally, he looked at me. And there it was. Not obvious, not dramatic, but still there. That same tension, that same awareness, like we both knew exactly what we were not saying, but neither of us was ready to say it. And that is when I realized something I had not fully understood the night before. It was not over, not even close.